In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
If you're planning on doing any traveling in the next little while, lots of people are going to be traveling for Christmas. In the U.S. alone, they expect a record 7.5 million Americans to fly for the holidays this year.
Which always leads to, of course, more chaos. And a travel expert has posted a list of tips to make sure that you don't lose your bag. So these are their top 4 tips. Number 1, buy some Apple AirTags or, those other sort of Bluetooth tracking devices and put those in there. So then you can at least do that. Now, that is a more expensive option.
I mean, they help, although there can be a certain degree of paranoia. The last time we flew, my wife went out and got some generic ones, I think. I don't know if they were Apple.
Well, you can get, if you don't have an Apple phone, then you can get, different versions.
She may have gotten the Apple ones, but we're sitting in the plane, and she's like, our bags aren't on the plane yet. Our bags aren't on the plane. And it's just like, I'm sure they're loading them. I'm sure they're going to put, and sure enough, they obviously came along with us. But that's one way to at least know where your bag is.
Yes. Also, they say book a direct flight because, in general, they're less likely to lose your bag. Or they're more likely to lose it when they're in that transition period. So the less time they're moving bags around, the more likely you're going to get it.
Also, take a photo of your bag before you fly. So many of them look the same. So if yours gets lost, it's helpful to have that picture. That's actually really smart. Or you can put something around your bag. I know you can get those, little things you can tighten that are colorful, like belts. Those specific belts.
Well, and I know, too, they also say that you should put, an ID card or your business card in your suitcase as well. Because if your tag gets ripped off, like your identification tag, because that can happen in some of those equipment. And along with that, the 4th and final tip is to print out your itinerary and put it inside your bag. Because then if your bag does end up in the wrong city or the tags rip off, the baggage workers and the airline workers can at least open it up to try to find some clues. And if they see your itinerary right on the top, along with your name and phone number, then they can get a hold of you.
At the very least, they can tell you, oh, you wanted your bag to be in Mexico. I'm sorry, it's in Paris. Right? So maybe at some point you can get your bag back. I know friends that flew from Scotland a couple of years ago. Now, this is when they were really having a tough time with staffing, things like that. And it was because they had to transfer flights that he was convinced that their bags got lost, but he had the AirTags. He could tell where the bags were at Pearson, and they were like, no, he said they were so unhelpful that he and his son walked around, found the room where the bags were, and he said there were hundreds of bags, no one there. They walked in, found their bags, just walked out, which is scary to think how many other people were just potentially stealing them at that point.
Yeah, people could just go in and do that.
A little scary, but a couple of tips to at least try and know where your bag is, even if it's not with you. Have you gotten into watching Christmas movies yet?
I have been. I've watched a couple, especially with my nephews, right? They always love Christmas movies. Actually, we made them rewatch the end of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the one with Jim Carrey, the other day.
We've watched Home Alone 1 and 2 so far. I don't know. You get into Home Alone 2, and there's some good parts, and then I think they should have subtitled that How to Kill Some Guys. Because
throwing bricks off the roof of a 3-story townhouse in New York City?
Yeah, you'd be done.
Yeah.
You'd be over.
How are you still chasing the child around?
The one guy was getting electrocuted in the basement, although the scene in that movie that always makes me laugh is similar to the tarantula one, where the bird lady comes and saves him in Central Park, and she throws the bird seed on him.
Oh, yes.
Daniel Stern's scream as the pigeons are all over him is still epic. Well, we've got some facts from some of the Christmas movies behind the scenes that you may never have known about.
Yeah, so like I was saying, we watched How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. Well, before he was cast, apparently Eddie Murphy and Jack Nicholson were considered for the part.
Interesting.
Well, and didn't it take forever, too, to get all the makeup and costume on him?
I want to say he had to sit there for like 8 to 10 hours or longer.
Actually, I think my sister told me she listened to an interview with him, and they brought in some like former Navy SEAL who would train them how to handle torture if you were ever a prisoner of war. How
to disassociate yourself from what was going on. The shower scene in Elf, that wasn't in the original script. It was added after the director, Jon Favreau, learned that Zooey Deschanel was a pretty good singer.
And that's such a good scene. And then he runs into the locker.
Don't look at me! Along.
Also, the fight between Will Ferrell and the fake Santa could only be done once because it took them weeks to get all of those decorations set up in the department store. So they only had one shot to film that scene where they wrecked everything.
You know, I'm in the crowd that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I just think it is. And because Bruce Willis had to do a lot of things barefoot in Die Hard, including walking on broken glass, he actually wore fake rubber feet, which you can actually see if you look hard enough. Pause it next time you're watching it on one of those scenes.
Hey, in A Christmas Story, you know how he stuck his tongue to the metal pole and it gets stuck? Well, they actually his tongue was suctioned by a hidden vacuum to make it look like it was stuck to the pole.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, even then, what was that movie recorded and filmed? That would still be considered child abuse to actually take a kid's tongue and stick it to the pole. In other behind-the-scenes facts from Christmas movies, It's a Wonderful Life was shot in the summer of 1946, and sometimes they had to shut down the production because it was just too hot.
Oh.
It was too much.
So how did they get the snow to stick around? Or I guess back in those days, I guess maybe they just used asbestos.
I was going to say that's probably what they did.
Because isn't that what they did in The Wizard of Oz?
I think
for
they
something?
did. Now, I got to film actually a winter commercial. It never made it to TV, but it was for the Saturn. Do you remember the Saturn car?
Yeah.
They came up to where I was working and they wanted somebody to do like a weather report. They used potato flakes. So I was supposed to be the weatherman, and I'm, with the microphone doing a stand-up and a big blizzard around me. And I wondered, because it was filmed in the middle of summer, so I had to put on my winter coat and hat. I was sweating so much because it was so hot that day. But it was potato flakes that they were using because birds can eat them and it doesn't hurt them.
And I've heard that with Hallmark movies. They're like, you get so hot because you're wearing a winter coat, but we're filming it in like September and August.
And finally, do you remember this scene?
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
Yeah, when he finds a picture of Buzz's, his brother's girlfriend, a framed photo. It was actually, I believe, the actor who played Buzz in a wig. Mm-hmm. Because they didn't want to have to find, like, quote, an ugly girl.
And body shame
and subject them into that. So they just had the actor who played Buzz put on a wig and pose for a photo.
He was a jerk, right? Do you ever think, like, his brother, even his siblings in general, in Home Alone, they were kind of mean to him.
They
right?
were really mean to him.
And why do I feel like Buzz grew up to be some sort of middle manager that always picked on everyone at work?
I had to line up behind the lady that was eyeballing me. And she's seen that I only had these two, and I'm like holding Hudson, he's like slapping and scratching me. And she kind of just greased me off and looked me up and down and continued stacking her stuff and did not let me go in front of her for two little things. I took her eggs and bacon and her butter that was at the back of the pile, kind of just sat it back towards me and put those in front of it, and eyeballed them.
Yeah, so she ended up taking her eggs and bacon and butter. You'd get home, you've done this big grocery, run, and you're like, wait a minute, where's all these other groceries?
But then you look at your receipt and they're not on there because she just like moved the bar over a couple items.
So what's your take on this? You can text us at 519-351-6300. Who was in the right? Who was in the wrong, in your opinion? Because the woman, she could have let her through, knowing she only had a couple things.
Yeah, I've had
holding
people,
a fussy kid.
I've had people do that before at the grocery store for me. I've only had a couple of items in my hands and they're like, oh, go ahead. Because they know I'm going to take 2 seconds. But I don't know, this Australian woman, you don't know maybe the lady in front of you was in a rush. Maybe she'd already started loading the stuff up onto the conveyor belt. And it would be kind of a pain to let you pop ahead then.
I've done that, though. If someone's only got a couple of things and I've already started loading, I'll be like, do you want to go? You can move ahead.
So Dan texted to say, I'll let someone with a few items ahead of me, but then the next person will expect the same treatment. But then again, my time has the same value as yours, so sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the situation. Do you feel like they're acting entitled? Like,
right.
Can't believe you didn't let me ahead. Well, then I'm not going to let you ahead just to prove a point.
Well, I was just going to say, Dan, apparently your time it wouldn't matter as much to this lady because she's just grabbing stuff off of the conveyor belt. Talk about a passive-aggressive move.
Yeah.
On top of it, too.
Well, Teresa just texted to say if the lady in front had already put groceries on the belt, then no. Now, if she hadn't placed any items down yet, then yeah, you should have let her in front. But stealing is never acceptable. Well, Terry, she wasn't stealing. She took the items and paid for them and added them to her order. It's like a little caveat. As you said, it's a very passive-aggressive move. So what do you think? Who was right? 519-351-6300. You can call and text us, weigh in on that. Diana just texted to say, the women with a few items and the small child, I feel acted entitled.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think she just thought in that moment, I should be able to go through. So I was in a grocery store one time in the express line, and this lady had a cart full of stuff, and she came up, and there was a lineup. right? And she went to cut the line. And the guy in front of me goes, where do you think you're going with that? She goes, well, I'm getting in line. And he goes, this is the express line. Where is that? I don't see that posted. He points up. Can you read? He said. She gave him the dirtiest look and then went to one of the other cashiers because I guess she didn't. Our line wasn't quite as long as some of the other ones because it was around a holiday. It was really busy.
Yeah, but unless, because like I've also been waiting in line next to the express line with a whole bunch of stuff, and there was no one in the express lane, so they're like, well, come on over, I'll just check you out. And then I've had someone come up behind me and they're like, I'm like, she told me to come over.
Right?
There was no one here.
You almost want to hold up a sign. I was told to come over here. So what do you think in this case, though? Was she right that maybe that person should have let them cut ahead and go ahead?
Well, should have, but you also don't know. Maybe she was in a hurry. She was in a rush to get somewhere.
Yeah, she wanted to go home and cook some bacon and eggs, and now she can't do that anymore because she doesn't have the bacon, eggs, or the butter because this lady took them home. I just think it's really an entitled attitude.
Well, as Dan said, my time has the same value as yours.
But a lot of people don't think that way necessarily, right?
I remember someone phrased it this way. It's like in everyone's mind, they're the star of their own movie. They're the main character. And they're not thinking about everyone else. You're just, you're minor supporting actors in my life.
Supporting cast.
Exactly.
Well, let's try and remember that as we go through the Christmas and holiday season right now. Let's try and all be a little bit more considerate to each other. UK police said that they are relieved and overjoyed to learn a teen found walking along a road in southwestern France is a British boy who went missing 6 years ago.
So if you're wondering, how did this all happen? Well, the teen claims to be a man by the name of Alex Batty. And they're still working to sort of establish what happened in those 6 years when he was away. But he's now 17. And back in 2017, he went on vacation to Spain with his mother and grandfather. They are not his legal guardians. And police say that his mother and grandfather never returned him back to his family in the Manchester area in the UK following the vacation. And so he's just been gone ever since.
So a delivery driver, spotted the teen looking lost and kind of run down on the side of a road. So he drove him to a police station. So the driver said the teen told him he had been, quote, kidnapped and was living in a, and I quote here, spiritual community in Spain before he moved to France about 2 years ago.
And then I guess once he got older, he decided, I want to leave. I want to go back and I want to see my grandmother because I think she was the legal guardian of him and wanted to live a normal life. And so he left when he was 17 and was found walking around. And we were able to hook up a video call with his grandmother, but they're still trying to confirm everything. But what a crazy story.
Wild. So apparently he'd been walking this mountainous area for like 4 days. So probably surviving on whatever water he could find. Probably not eating much if he didn't have much with him. So just such a bizarre situation. So now at this point, they're looking for the grandfather and the mom. They don't know where they are in all of this.
If they're still in that, wherever he was in France, in the south of France, or what happened.
Just a bizarre situation. Obviously, the family happy to be reunited with him after 6 long years. You think about the lyrics to that song, right? City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, in the air, feeling of Christmas, children laughing, people passing. Christmas can be very stressful for a number of reasons.
Oh, yesterday I was rushing out of here to get over to watch one of my nephews with the Christmas concert and then trying to find parking and get there in on time. And my mom had to save me a seat, and you get there and it was like, for 2 minutes, to watch them for 2 minutes.
I mean, they use the words, people, the hustle and bustle. But if that's getting to you, here's a few ways they say you can relieve and bust some of that stress.
Give yourself an ear massage. Apparently, if you massage your ears from lobe to up to the top using gentle pressure, it's like a needle-free acupuncture session.
Also, remind yourself about your posture. Sit up tall, focus on your shoulder blades, trying to get them to touch each other, and then shift down as far as you can go, and then repeat that. And that'll give you a bit of a break.
Another way to help ease the stress this holiday season, think of yourself. I think it's really important to, you don't have to treat yourself, but maybe schedule in a walk by yourself to get away from family. If you know you're going to be around a lot of family and you need some alone time to recharge. Or, just tell the kids that you're wrapping Christmas presents so they can't come in, and then you get 20 minutes alone time.
Don't forget to stretch and breathe. Those are two big ones, right? To try and relieve stress and just give your body a bit of a break.
Yeah, it says just lifting your arms above your head, stretching your fingers towards the ceiling can do a lot. Gets the blood flowing again, too. Something else you can do, just breathe. You know, if things seem uncontrollable, slow down. Breathe in and out of your nose using slow, deep, steady breaths.
I like this one. Don't say yes, say maybe. So if you're feeling overwhelmed because there's so many holiday parties or you're getting pulled in different directions by friends and family, don't commit necessarily to every single thing. Just say, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Maybe.
And if you find that you've been suffering from a lot of headaches lately, it could be because you're clenching your jaw. So focus on unclenching your teeth. Allow your jaw to relax. Might make a big difference.
So I watched a TikTok a while back from a military guy who said, you know, when you're out in the field, you don't have a lot of time to fall asleep, right? So he said they taught them a technique of relaxation where you know, sit whatever position you're in. You relax every part of your body, but he said from your feet up, you close your eyes, imagine your whole body is relaxing. But he said the biggest key, he said the same thing, your jaw. He says a lot of times you're clenching even as you're trying to fall asleep. That's a big one to think about. Release your jaw a little bit and see if it doesn't work and help you fall asleep. You're behind the wheel, sun is shining, you have to sneeze. Do you let her rip or do you try and stop it?
Well, this story, if you learn anything from it, should be just let the sneeze go. Never hold a sneeze in. A guy in his 30s was driving recently in Scotland when he felt the need to sneeze. And he tried to hold it in, and it was disastrous.
Yeah, he closed his mouth and pinched his nose, thinking that would be the way to do it. But he still sneezed, and he tore a hole in his throat. Because that pressure's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, the technical term is spontaneous tracheal perforation. And he showed up to the hospital in severe pain, and a scan showed that he had a 2-millimeter tear in his windpipe. Doctors say this rarely happens, but thankfully he's going to be okay. And he didn't even need surgery. They just gave him some painkillers, and then the tear healed itself within about a couple weeks.
So they're really hoping that by putting this story out there, people won't do that.
No, because they say if you plug your nose when you're trying to sneeze and like have your mouth closed, the pressure in your upper airway can be 20 times what it normally is, which is, you know, how you have an issue like that where you have this tiny little tear in your throat.
Well, it could have been way worse. Doctors said it can also cause ruptured eardrums, broken ribs, or even an aneurysm.
So are you giving me permission to sneeze on the air now? Because there's been times where I've had to like try to contain it or like walk away so that I don't sneeze into the microphone.
I say let it fly. Do you like antiquing or thrifting?
Not really, but I think for anyone who's ever watched Antiques Roadshow, this next story is something that you would probably dream of happening to you. A woman by the name of Jessica loved to go to her local thrift stores and, you know, look for finds. She just showed up at one in her home state of Virginia when this vase caught her eye. Shaped like a bottle, had ribbons of color through it, aqua green and this like sort of amethyst purple, spiraled up the glass surface, kind of like stripes of paint, but it was within the glass. So she picked it up and she made out the words Murano and Italia on the base. Now, of course, Murano, that's like where glass making started all the way back in the day.
Know that, though, you don't know.
Yes, but here's the thing is, I mean, you don't know. Is it a souvenir someone picked up on a little vacation? Or is it a priceless collector's piece?
She bought it for $3.99 at a Goodwill, not thinking at the time she would sell it. So she started doing some research. And then on December 13th, the vase sold for $107,000. A buyer, a top collector from Europe, wished to remain private, is the one that purchased it.
So, of course, as I mentioned, the Murano is in reference to the island near Venice, which is famous for its glass work. It's got some very highly prized creations that have come out of there over the year. But apparently, the vase was produced by a renowned glass company called Veneni, designed by an Italian architect who passed away in 1978, which is why it was so valuable.
Well, she had posted it online, and she said, you know, just asking about it, and she went and, you know, did some research, and she posted it in Facebook, and one response said, those are very rare. Every collector would love to have that, but most people cannot afford them. Because a lot of these pieces ended up going to royalty back in the day.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, this came from a certain collection, which means brushstroke, which was made by adding colored opaque glass to the vases as it was being blown. But very few were ever made because they are very difficult to create.
So she was able to turn a $3.99 purchase into $107,100, to be precise. Wow. Nice return on investment.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's Favorite Moments of the Week.